Hello, everybody. Today we have an amazing guest, Daniel Calamy, AI research of UC Berkeley of course, in AI. So today conversation is about the hype and the reality in AI. What is possible and what is not possible yet. So thank you so much for joining the conversation, Daniel. If you want, if you can make a little bit introduction about yourself, about your background, about how you get into this world of AI and also into the Web3 environment. Can you tell us a little bit about, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ricardo, for having me today. It's nice to be able to talk a little bit about my research, but also about the space, which seems to be going very, very fast, especially the last few months. So my name is Daniel. I'm originally from Albania, born and raised in Greece. I do have a background in computer science and recently finished my master's in AI and data analytics here at UC Berkeley. After that, I continued doing my research where I was previously doing it while in my studies as a graduate student researcher in a lab at the College of Engineering, specialized in decentralized autonomous organizations and micro-lending protocols, and how those resonate from the perspective of portfolios from venture capital firms that were interested to understand how the space is moving, if it's a threat or is a competition or it's an opportunity for them to invest. And there was an opportunity to also use machine learning models to kind of predict how the governance structures are implemented, where you would find potential bottlenecks in the voting mechanism and different let's say, business opportunities for the VC firms. Other than that, I would say that since the launch of ChatGPT, I've also been interested in the application of LLMs in different spaces across different domains, but also looking from the ethical lens as well. Due to my background in a past life or concurrent life, I would say I was equally interested in the ethical AI in the policy realm of the internet AI, how it affects our lives, and how can we deploy them responsibly through the application of different startups bringing such technology into people's lives, or through the policy realms, how are we able to safeguard such technology so that they affect our lives positively while trying to mitigate all the negatives or unintended consequences. So yeah, I will leave it with that, and from there you can pick whichever of the
Awesome.
things and we can go into depth. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So I would like to go first on the tech policy, then the tech policies, because there is a lot of different applications that we have right now with the APIs of the LMS. But the difficult thing is how we process data, if the ethics behind that. So tell us a little bit more about the difficulty of, the as the title of the conversation is the hype versus the reality, where we can use and applicate right now AI, and where we can apply it yet because of tech policy and different ethical conversations.
Yeah. So I would say first on the hype aspect, what the technology can actually do. I think I heard and read recently an article by McKinsey where it said that the potential of LLMs right now can add a $4.4 trillion every year to across 63 or 68 different domains or disciplines. That was huge because it's like additive to what is currently going on in tech and all the other domains already. But I would add there an asterisk saying that the technology can be cool and can be amazing. I mean, OpenAI's model has over 175 billion parameters. It's built based on huge amounts of training. We have other open source models like Llama 2. Google's foundational models also have been proven to be good, and I think you can't really understand how of a hyper reality one foundational model is until you start deploying it into the real world. But once you start applying it, you being a startup, let's say in one of those 68 domains that Mackenzie was referring, let's say medicine or cybersecurity or other realms, maybe you might find the problem of ambiguity, which is really, really important for a startup that tries to start fresh in technology. Because if you are an experienced player in the space but want to now transfer your, let's say, whole suite of products into AI capabilities, you should really, really pay attention if AI is regulated in that space. Because if it's not, one, you might face to, okay, I'm going ahead because there is ambiguity and maybe in the future it's going to be regulated, so I can do that. But in the case that later on they will decide that you cannot really implement that, it means that your business goes out of nothing in a few years' time. And having ambiguity in the space is really, really risky for startups, but especially big players, because reputation plays a role there. But on the other hand, I will say that just not having regulations at all, it's really, really bad, because you don't know where everything is heading. Even though the technology is going to be mature at some point, which for now it's anything but mature because it's still in experimentation levels. I would say that regulation is really, really important for all of these domains to flourish and have all of these startups working in that space. I think the US has a long way to still bring forward an AI regulation. I think California is a little bit more at the forefront. But in the global stage, European Union has really worked on crafting AI regulations, at least for its own space. But as we have seen with different technologies, when it applies to big countries like Western Europe or European Union, it transpires to other places. An example here I will bring Apple. They said that the new iPhone that will come this September, it's going to have USB Type-C, very, very different from what it used to be with a lightning cable. And the only reason is because European Union actually is forcing it for 2024 to have a unified market with all phones new, especially being manufactured and being bought in Europe, to have Type-C. So once you have regulation in one part of the world and it's important to a company, it really has to comply with that policy elsewhere in the world, because it's difficult to kind of do two or three things depending on different reasons, especially if it's hardware and software. For software, it's easier. You might just do a firewall and like do different things depending on location. But I would say, yeah, definitely policy is very, very important. I can bring here many, many other examples, even with my own research, but yeah, this is just like a first touch.
In that way, Daniel, what will be a problem about tech policy? I have a perception, and some other people that I have talking about it is like government is slow comparing to technology, and they can regulate something that they don't truly understand. What do you think about it? Like how government and policymakers could be in the top of notch technology to make effective tech policy?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think it's very, very frustrating to have that. I can recall here an experience that I had in 2020. I joined this initiative called Generation Connect. It was a youth initiative. It started in Europe, but now you have chapters across the continents. And the first project that we got onboarded on the United Nations International Telecommunication Union, it was about the environment. And one of the things were e-waste, where part of the policy was the actual thing that kind of forced Apple to comply. And that was back in 2020. And when we were onboarded, that law was even years prior to us joining it. So we're talking about law in the making for over 4 or 5 years, up to coming to fruition now in 2024 to make companies to comply. So it is very slow, it is very bureaucratic and frustrating, but if I can bring one positive into that, I would say that, especially when it comes to AI, because it's very, very fast paced and it can be rapidly deployed in so many domains at the same time, it can have huge impacts. And here I can bring impacts in the future of work, a displacement of many, many white collar jobs, and then creating new other jobs. But in the meantime, you need to have some adjustments for people to be reskilled and then gain those skills to be able to take the new jobs being available while they might be unemployed. Or many other issues of when we don't know yet what the impact will be. Let's say now we trust that all the billions of parameters in the OpenAI model keep refining the model and making it better and better, but we don't know longer term if there will be hallucinations or any wrongdoing in the process that will make a direction of one space, instead of flourishing, downgrading and then losing trust in technology. So probably the one positive of being slow in the policy will be leaving some time to mature and do the testing and all the ground work, and then after some time understanding where it's heading and putting the real policies in place.
Got it.
I don't think there is like a silver bullet solution to it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a question about it. How to balance that, the policy versus a libertarian view, like don't regulate something, like don't regulate technology to go faster, versus regulation and like be in that way we can be careful, but also it will be more slow the development. How we can achieve like that balance, because I think that's one of the biggest threats in
Yeah.
that way.
So I would want to eliminate any of the extremes, like
Yeah,
being too slow or overly policed, and on the other hand, completely liberal, no regulations at all. And I think I gave the overregulation example because if it takes too long, then you are completely hindering innovation. But on the other hand, I can give you an example from my current research at our labs, where we are looking at the intersection of like using AI and Web3 in decentralized autonomous organizations, where regulation is important, because now that's the issue why we see bottlenecks in the space, where let's say in the micro lending space, you want to make it available to people, especially where we're looking at developing countries. And in that realm, you can't really apply over collateralized loans, where it means if I want to buy 100, I need to give you 150 before so I can get the 100. It doesn't really make sense for the normal sense in real life, because we are used to just take loans and then pay incrementally lower fees. But right now, it is like that because there is no regulation, and all of those DAOs that are working in the space, they need to have over collateralized loans to kind of create this safety net for reasons. Okay, someone might not pay, or others like there might be a default in a different currency when you do the conversion, so the safety has to be there. But in order for it to explode and have options for to make it mainstream and compete with other microloan services, you will have to have the regulation to enforce people. In order, let's say they're not complying to pay the fees on time, they're going to get penalties, and that's backed by the government or whatever, and that will create more security. And slowly, instead of over collateralization, you'll have under collateralization, and that's very, very rare right now in the space, because it's very, very risky for anyone to enter the market like that.
yeah,
So I think, yes, if it takes too much time, it probably hinders innovation. But if it doesn't exist, it doesn't offer incentives for a safer environment for startups or anyone to enter the space, because at this point you have no regulation, no safeties, no anything. So I think a sweet middle point would be the best option, where you have more tech-savvy policymakers who kind of understand or have more trainings or bring more people from Silicon Valley on board and kind of train them day-to-day basis. Yeah, there needs to be more collaboration between DC and Silicon Valley, or you can find the equivalent in other places, let's say European Commission and other tech hubs across Europe. But yeah, I think that should definitely be a closer collaboration, especially when technologies right now are moving faster and faster. You can't keep doing the same old methods that you keep using with policymaking. It has to be faster.
Absolutely. Something that really surprised me about your research is that you are focused, or you have two main areas of research, that is the Web3 and the AI. So that's very interesting. Can you tell us more about how these both fields combine, and making a double click how AI and blockchain, your AI and blockchain research you conduct on decentralized autonomous organizations and in the DeFi crypto landing page, like making a double click on that and some insights that you get about it?
Yeah, sure. I would say it's definitely very, very sexy to hear both blockchain and AI at the same
Yeah,
time, especially if we bring like a startup that wants to apply for funding. They'll say, oh, wow, like you are at the bleeding edge of research. I would say that's the nice thing about it, but it's a double-edged sword. You have both the positives and negatives. I would say both, since they are very, very new technologies, very, very ambiguous on the policy side. It's very, very shaky. I think it's very, very risky for people to enter the space. But on the research side, or any different developments that you can find, it's very, very liberating, because you gain the decentralization of what blockchain has to offer, the flexibility to kind of create a very open source parallel universe to what we currently have with proprietary systems, especially in the financial system, while at the same time bring the cutting edge of AI and reasoning, inference, or automation. Um, I think in that space that we're currently working, uh, what we're currently seeing, it's a little bit difficult to kind of productize those and commercialize them right now. I would say the space is not mature yet. Probably my guess would be give it 3 to 5 years time to have more mature products coming out of the space.
okay.
Which is why I'm a little bit frustrated that, I was hoping to gain a little bit more out of the research and the tech side, but it's a little bit more frustrating than that. You keep seeing very, very cool research being done of like, zero proof and all different research papers on how can you do different implementations, how can you improve different bottlenecks, how can you increase the transaction amount per second. But for as long as there is no policy on that, and as I said, if you cannot push customers to kind of comply to different regulations, everything is all over, and uh, which is why right now I think it's the field is filled with investors, like crypto investors and tech savvies and financial experts, and not so much from the normal people, the general public, because first of all, it's highly technical, and that's because it hasn't matured yet as an industry, but also the risk of regulations. We've been seeing different crashes of in the crypto space the past few months,
Yeah,
and that's coupled with high research coming now from LLMs, and how can you, let's say, bring an intelligent bot in crypto and telling you which crypto portfolios to invest in, or when, let's say, you are in different pools, which are the best combinations so that you do some conversion and win some money in the process of the conversion. You can use LLMs there if you are an investor. But if you are a researcher, you are probably looking at how can you make the space more efficient. In our current research, how can we do sort of predictions and see how can we implement microlending in developing regions. I can bring here specific Latin America countries where there was hyperinflation in their value and they saw value on cryptocurrencies.
yeah,
Um, sort of how can you improve bottlenecks on when you do processing times between different banks across the world. So yeah, there can be definitely many efficiencies in the process, but I would say it's risky and very all over the place once you don't have the current policies in place.
Yeah. You say something about the different countries that are embracing Web3 across Latin America. I think that one big example is Argentina. And how what kind of in the Latin space and the developing countries, what kind of different application of Web3 technology do you saw? What different solutions do you think? Micro lending, how we can use this technology and also elements to improve the quality of life of people across developing countries.
Yeah, I can bring here an example from a personal experience why I came into the research, and then I can bring you certain ones from Latin America. I think one of the interesting things why I wanted to do this research was because in the past I did micro lending in Albania.
Oh,
Um, we did try to take a loan, my family actually, because okay, we were in Greece, we went back in Albania, there was this crisis, and so we thought doing a micro lending would be the best option at that point in time. Um, it was proven to be a wrong decision because in Albania at that time there was a lift of regulation in the space, so you had this sprouting of so many micro lending companies all over Albania, and more so that even the company that we applied for a loan, a few years later they completely defaulted and they went out of the market, and this happened with many others. And so you would get a loan and you end up paying 60, 70, 90% fees, so almost double to what you got. And that was crazy because regulation was like that. It wasn't incentivizing strict regulation, so people were inflating interest rates like crazy. And I was like, this happens in all developing countries. And microlending was supposed to be a tool to help unbanked people. Because in order to be banked, you need to be secure with a job, you need to have some collateral. And for someone who is unbanked and doesn't have the option to have an entry for such an option, microlending is lucrative. It makes sense for most people. But for as long as you create those crazy interest rates, it does really make sense.
yeah,
I've seen many, many cases where people uh, especially out of Pakistan, India, even Albania, Latin America, people went almost to suicide because they were not able to pay interest rates.
wow,
And those companies create the worst incentives. They will go at your home, they will knock
yeah,
every day, like they will call your relatives. They will be able to withhold your salary. They'll do all of kind of unethical sort of ways just to take the money, which is already overpriced with crazy interest rates. So I would say what Web3 would try to do in the space is sort of democratize the space, not leave it to those small players who kind of monopolize and not have to be tied to what regulation a country has, but sort of be a globalized network of under collateralized microloans where everyone can take their loan and be able to pay based on, even though they don't have a bank or they shouldn't give a proof of a job or any collateral, they have more like easier ways how to get proof and how to get the first loan in the space. But of course, that comes with the risk of a company to give that loan because
absolutely,
if there is no regulation, people will not pay back.
absolutely,
And yeah, I think that was the interesting and part in the space. I thought it would really, really help everyone who is unbanked all over the world, especially developing countries, who can't really take a loan in banks because they don't have a stable job or they don't have a collateral like a house uh, to kind of help them. And yeah, I think Venezuela was a good example with like hyperinflation as well, where I saw many, many cases of people looking at crypto as their best way to kind of preserve value. Because I think there were stories of some startup um, crypto people from Venezuela where they were saying that today there was certain value and didn't know tomorrow if it would be worse or better. So a way more secure way would be to just take it to crypto that is pegged to the dollar, like stable coins. And so the value of their money let's say from the seller, would be much more stable from just leaving it to their local currency. So it's sort of different use cases depending on a different like country to country basis. But overall, I think decentralization, the option to give more power to people, seems powerful.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much, Daniel. So, if we can, I have a question about the different waves that you have been surfing in these past months, because, well, also yours in the 2021 and 2022 was like a big hype about Web3, and now it looks like all the investors and also entrepreneurs are making a shift to AI. So, as you have knowledge in both fields, how you have saw the movement from Web3 to AI, and as we saw, different companies haven't raised the money necessary in the Web3 space, and some are pivoting to generative AI. What are your thoughts about it? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm moving from Web3 to AI, so I think that's telling enough. Yeah, I would say it can also be a bubble, right? I mean, excitement comes with inflating technologies and doing the hype, which again, it's part of today's topic. But I think Web3 and crypto already went through a bubble, through a hype. Everyone went for it. They thought it's going to be it, and many people benefit out of it. You have NFT applications, all sort of things coming out of the space still, even though you have many people going down, yeah, NFX and many other players. But AI, I think it's still going now through its bubble and hype phase. But I tend to, I don't know, I might be completely wrong, but I tend to think that the hype might be real, might be worth it for AI because it's so transformative. It can be applicable to so many domains, not just primarily finance and like um, yeah, different like social media and NFTs on what crypto is currently doing, but it's even more. It can be applied to health tech, to fintech, to all sorts of different startups. And I've been personally trying to work with the different models. Yesterday, it was a good news that OpenAI opened the ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo for fine tuning. So I've been working a bit from yesterday with some like
Right.
modeling and trying to test. I think the more proprietary data you have, the better it's going to make it with fine tuning. At the same time, I think the cost for fine tuning was a little bit expensive from what I would think it would be more accessible for OpenAI at least. But you have other options in the space. I think Llama 2 from Meta, it's an open source model, so fine tuning there can be for free. I
Yeah.
think for certain foundational models, Google's one has cheaper alternatives. I'm yet to be exploring those. I'm actually looking forward next week. There is the Google
Yeah.
Cloud conference. I think
Yeah.
you'll be there, right?
Absolutely. See you there, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do have some sessions there on fine tuning and all their AI suite of products. So also definitely looking forward to see how that compares with the competition. Um, but yeah, I think it's definitely exciting. You do really need to get your hands dirty with the models and kind of get accustomed to their weaknesses, their strengths. Um, sort of be working with more than one model if it makes sense. Let's say if for you are a startup and you start up with not much run and not much money, probably the best option would be to go with an open source model like Llama 2. But then if you want to have a way better improvement in accuracy or whatever you're working on, spending the extra bucks with OpenAI's or Google's might be a better alternative. But yeah, I think the fact that you have options and not only just big players, but new startups come up in the space. The competition kind of helps the space to move forward. I don't think what we see now is going to be relevant 3, 6, 9 months from now. The space is so unpredictable.
Yeah.
So me trying to do predictions here will completely make me look like a fool. So I would try not to. But I would say overall it's exciting. I don't think that AI is going to go bust. We might have a burst of a bubble at some point where you have overly estimated, let's say, evaluations of different startups that are AI first or AI native or different implementations. But in the long run, I think it's important to understand that they can have really impactful, things to do. And then coupled with policy, if it kind of catches up, that really helps to create security in each of the domains that AI will be deployed, for sure.
Absolutely. And about the title of this talk, the reality, what we can actually do right now. I think that large language models is like the most. I don't know, like people is really focused on that right now, but there are other cases like computer vision, boss to text, a lot of different. Can you helping us to understand what we can do with the actual technology that is already in the market that we can use for, I don't know, start different companies and implement in middle and big companies right now?
Yeah, I would say a very good term that is coming out recently is text to X. So having text as a starting point and then the output being whatever you want. Is it text to text? Is it text to speech? Is it text to video or images or code base? Really important, especially for no coders. I think I saw recently on LinkedIn a guy from the Netherlands who flew all the way to Silicon Valley. He finished high school. He was like, I'm all in to do a startup. He had no coding background and he's now trying to build an email marketing tool. I think it's going pretty successful because the guy is able to secure like different clients now and everything. It's exciting for someone to start from scratch and be able to use a tool like LLMs and from there to create a whole code base for their own website, customer base and customer service and everything. A bit scary on the other hand, because for some domains, it might be a little bit unethical to bring people who are no experts and try to do everything. Let's say in healthcare, if you bring no healthcare experts and they build whole websites with promising to do diagnosis or different things in the space, I think that's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
But for right now, the bar of entry to kind of enter as a startup is very low, and I think it's very optimistic for everyone who wants to give it a shot, like the guy who I just mentioned. And the modality that you get from LLMs to be able, from just giving it certain prompts with prompt engineering or prompt design, to be able to create a refined code or images if you are a marketer. It's the cost to create images now and sort of market your product. It's easier. If you want to create a demo, a text to video, kind of do descriptions and edit, it's very cheap. You don't have to employ let's say a video editor or photographer and anything. Now it's way cheaper to do it. I think I saw all the images generated from AI recently are the same as 150 years worth of video and photo making that humans have done, which is crazy. It's like over 15 trillion of AI generated pictures from
Wow.
DALL-E, from diffusion models, from Firefly. It is definitely exciting. It's moving so fast that we haven't realized it's been just a few months of those products being deployed. But yeah, I would say a few things to keep in mind. The bar to entry is very low. Text to X now is sort of a thing. You can have text prompts and be able to generate code, video, or other modalities. The challenge that yet is not a reality would be to have multimodal models, sort of having AI agents that are able to, from foundational models, to kind of be smarter and more experts in different domains and be able to take in as input all sorts of modalities, whether it's like text, video, code, combine all of that and bring also the same amount of like modalities. So that's a challenge that the space is currently facing. But I think slowly text to X is moving towards that reality, but
Yeah,
we're a bit far from there. I think it's
that's
good to cherish the wins for now of what the space is offering.
absolutely. I have a friend that his name is Francisco Valencia. He's the co-founder of Protesia. Protesia is making also AI to make uh, prostheses, like for different, yeah, for people in vulnerability. But what they are doing is like a scan to test, and then test to make the 3D print, 3D printing. So you can make like test to X and then to Y, different kind of, like your output could be your input in the next one. So that blows my mind in the different possibilities. Obviously, the as you said before, the data that you get is the quality of your output. So I think but that's equation of you get an input, then you get an output, and that output could be your input in the next algorithm. That's very powerful for me. So
For
I can see
sure.
different possibilities about it. Yeah. So I would like to. This is very interesting. If you start a game, but with everything that you already know, how will you start in the AI space? As you say before, if you don't know how to code, how will you teach yourself how to code, or how you start again in this space? Like, because there is a lot of FOMO around it, and there is people that is not technical that want to jump into the space. What will be your own advice for yourself, like, but with your own, with the capabilities that you already have, how you will start a game?
Yeah. Uh, Personally, I mean, just as a general rule, I don't like to kind of even call myself or see others as experts. I
Yeah,
think being a student first, student always, and kind of learn the whole of your life, it's a top of a thing to keep in mind. Uh, because things and learnings that you've had before might go obsolete in a few months or years
yeah,
time, but right now we're talking months.
months or weeks.
Most of your skills go irrelevant,
Yeah,
or what used to be the sexy job to go after, it's not anymore. And I feel like that's with software engineers right now.
absolutely.
I don't think you necessarily have to be a software engineer to enter AI right now. um, Most of you doing the work with foundational models would require a different set of skills of like reasoning, of understanding how foundational models are made, um, how to be able to train them. Uh, if you don't want to be so technical about it and do the coding, product managers can do that. Like they can do the roadmap and can understand the product and kind of see how the space is heading, or how can you implement AI into your already existing suite of products. But for sure, new jobs are coming in the space. Prompt engineering wasn't a thing a few months ago, and now I'm seeing a few jobs pay hundreds of thousands of dollars on prompt engineering, which is just you understanding how to prompt the AI model. And if
Yeah,
you give it good prompts, you get high quality output.
yeah,
Um, it's Yeah, I think it's crazy, and I think I was seeing even entry level jobs in the space. I think there was a Financial Times article where they were saying you had entry level jobs starting from $380,000 all the way to $900,000.
that's crazy.
Um,
Yeah,
it is crazy, and they require different sets of skills that can be combined with not just you knowing how to code, but also just you understanding how the foundational models are made and where they're headed, and how can you inject their abilities in different spaces. Personally, if I would have to start again, well, I'm sort of starting again the space because I'm trying to build a startup in the space, and I think having some experience before on both the policy and the technology, I kind of see it as an advantage, but also as a disadvantage, because if you come from the policy side, you kind of
Mm,
think, oh, am I doing the right thing?
yeah,
Is this mature enough? Is it going to harm this? How am I do the collection? And actually, it really takes a lot of tough time to go from the policy lens to the startup entrepreneur lens, where you want to move fast and break things and iterate. But if you are breaking stuff, you might be hurting someone's data. So like, it's really, really sensitive.
yeah,
But I'm sort of grateful that I have that sort of skill, because now that I'm thinking of deploying an AI first startup with using a copilot uh, for therapy or different things that try to impact people's lives for the better, taking into consideration how ethical this is, how you take people's data, how you gather it, give them the option to delete it or review it. Um, that flexibility, I think, gives more trust into the space. And at the end of the day, if you have a much more trusting customer, it's a win for the space overall. People trusting at the skills of AI startups and what they're able to do, while at the same time not being so afraid to kind of give their data. Uh, it's important. Another example I can give was I think this week or last week, Zoom announced in their new launch that you would give all of the data of your recording, and they would use that for training
wow,
for AI models. And that
wow,
was irreversible. You wouldn't be able to say no or anything. They received such huge backlash from the community that they halted the update, or at least I think they pushed forward the update without those two clauses that gave them the permission to do so. So I think it's good to kind of have the policy people in the space to kind of see what's going right or wrong, but at the same time, yeah, it's really really important to kind of create a trusting environment and overall to make people feel much more comfortable to use these tools without feeling that, hey, what's going to happen with these tools, like it happened unfortunately with many social media tools. Everyone who had, for example, posted pictures or videos on Facebook or Instagram as public, they are publicly available open source pictures that now can be fed into AI models. And how did we know back in 2009 that pictures that we just post to share with our friends are now being fed into models from proprietary companies? Like, I didn't want to subscribe to that, but
no,
this is the kind of vacuum that we created in the space. So I'm kind of glad that sort of regulation is slow in the space, because it's trying to consider not only what is going to happen now or 3 years time, but how it's going to affect years to come. So it's really really important, even for startups. If you don't have people who trust AI, they're not going to get on board with your product. They're going to be afraid. So I don't think it is going to be harmful long term for startups as well. So everyone definitely should be looking into that.
absolutely. I have a question there, Daniel, as a consumer, because I have heard like different consumers said like, I don't care about my data because they already have it, something like that. Like there is some people that they say like, I'm just another one. But I think that is a serious problem behind that, because you don't truly understand how much data you share, like how much the companies can know about you, and why is important the privacy. So can you go a little bit deeper on that, like why as a consumer it's important for every one of us, like know what companies are you how companies are using our private data more in this kind of AI purpose.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty bad way to look at it if you are a consumer and thinking that it's not going to affect me, because as a matter of fact, you don't know what that data will do or how it will be used in the future, because that technology doesn't exist right now or it's not deployed. But if it's going to be deployed, then you're going to start be thinking, like the example I gave you with just pictures that you're uploading on Facebook, and now you see that they're being used to
Using,
train different models. I think I think it's scary to just not knowing that something that is out there and it's yours, it can be used in good or wrong ways, but we definitely are careful on the wrong ways that they might be using. them. And I think certain examples would be on how it went bad in recent years, especially with facial recognition technology. It's not a surprise why we don't have massively deployed FRT tech all around of our metropolis or big cities in the world. It's because most of the cities said no, they don't want them. And the reason is that even San Francisco, that is at the center of Silicon Valley and the center of tech, they were the first of the cities to say no and put a moratorium on deployability of FRTs for the fact that it was proven through many tests and research that the data that was fed into those models were primarily white male faces and tended to be super accurate on those faces, but the accuracy on other races and genders, primarily Black men and Black women, was such low accuracy that it tended to misidentify people. So it was used by law enforcement in certain cases, and they misidentified certain subjects as being the thief or the person doing the wrongdoing. But they, at the end of the day, they took the wrong person to jail, and that's a sort of wrong thing to think, that like, oh, I don't care about my data being used like that. But you don't know that at the end of the day, your data that you opt to give for free, it puts you to jail wrongfully. And that happened with a few, I think, Black males. I think it was in Chicago. The other case, I think it was in Boston, but I'm not sure. And they, at the end of the day, they went for a lawsuit and they won against the companies that deployed them, and they gave them to law enforcement agencies, which is why now it's massively put on hold, and many cities have put moratoriums for deployability of FRT technology. So what I would say to certain people in the space that don't care is that you don't know what you are not caring right now, because later on your data might be used in ways that we did not anticipate right now, and if used in wrong ways, they might harm you. And these people, I mean, I can take you to the transpiral effect. If you go to jail, then certain things happen, it's on file, you cannot backtrack it. So if you want to get a loan or mortgage, that's staying in your financial statements, and then you might not be able to get it for your future house. You might want to apply for, I don't know, credits, credit cards or whatever, or your job. If you do the background check, you have that as a stain in your CV. So yeah, I think it can ruin people's lives somehow, and that's definitely the nightmare scenario, which we don't want to see such technologies to be deploying, because we are thinking technology should be open and should improve people's lives. But there is cases like that it can go the wrong way. So caring about how we source the data, how we kind of save it or reproduce it or share it is really important. And I think at least EU is doing a good job with like GDPR and many data laws. And the good thing is that if EU is enforcing it, most likely they will comply for the rest of the world. So yeah, it's a win-win for the customer.
Absolutely. Daniel, thank you so much. We have some questions from the public, so if we can go through it and you can give me some answers, man, it will be amazing. Like this one, can you walk me through your process and tools for data visualization and creating presentations around your research? What makes an effective data visualization? This is like a technical one.
Yeah, so I would say if you do it the traditional way, data visualization would be with the normal pipelines in the cloud, let's say Google's Locker or other tools. But I think it's even more exciting now with the implementation of AI, where you have some of that being automated, because as I said, now you have text to image, where you are able to sort of, let's say you're on Google Cloud, although I'm not really sure the full capabilities of it, but I'm excited next week to see Google Cloud, what they have to offer on their AI suite. But I'm pretty sure that you can upload there your data set, and by just prompting it, you are able to well, the model is able to spit out some pretty good results. At least I've tried that with OpenAI's ChatGPT with some data sets. I think Bard, Google's Bard, can do that as well, where it's you just say it, based on that data, give me the 10 best inferences that you can draw from the data, and it's going to say, hey, this is, let's say, a data about financial statements, and you have 15,000 customers. 10,000 of them are based in the East Coast. 10% of them have defaulted. They don't have a good credit score. And then they can draw some graphs. They can do that too. And some of them are pretty awesome. They can remove the missing values. If you have missing values in your table, it removes them for better prediction or accuracy or for better visualization. It sort of does the whole data pipeline things, and especially if you are a data visualization person or a data analyst in general, you know the whole pipeline of you sourcing the data, uploading it, sort of do the data cleaning, and do later on some inference or data analysis, and then draw results from data visualization. That whole pipeline can be semi-automated now, and if you know the right prompts to give it based on your skill, it can give you high quality outputs as well. That goes with any other prompt in general, but I think it's exciting for that space as well. Even though you are a technical person, it can make your life even easier. For example, personally, I hate doing data cleaning, so I'm really glad that it can automate some of that part. And yeah, if I were you right now, being a data visualization person, data analyst, I would definitely be checking out such tools on the main clouds. I would say AWS should have a similar thing. Azure most likely has deployed some sort of copilot from OpenAI's model, since they are an exclusive partner to OpenAI. Google's foundational models are also embedded into the cloud, so you do get some flexibility on how to use those. But I'm pretty sure open source, if you want to do it your own way, just use your own editing tool and use your own foundational model. I'm pretty sure with open source foundational models, you can do that without the need to subscribe to a certain Google Cloud, like a cloud provider.
Amazing, Daniel. I think that that's a great example on how we can leverage all the tools out there, because to make it more easy the job as a data analyst, data scientist. I have another question. Is like, this is another technical one. How did you design the overall system architecture and data pipelines to conduct your research efficiently? So, if you face any challenge about it.
Yeah. So I would say efficiency was a key part in that research, because when I joined, there was no efficiency. The research was run by people who didn't have much of a technical background. I was probably the first or one of the few people who joined that research that had a technical background. Most of them were financial business from the VC world, and they were working with Excel sheets. Excel and yeah, so the problem was there that all the data that you needed to do, you needed to be doing it within Excel. And I was like, no, that's not really a good way to do it, especially if you want to be pulling API data from all the micro lending protocols that are out there. At least we were focusing at the time with the 4 biggest ones, like Avi, Compound, and some decentralized exchanges. The thing was there, it's pretty easy. If you are a technical person, you would want to automate that somehow. So you want to work with their documentation, grab their APIs and do some scraping. You want to do that to be automated somehow, so that you don't want to go back and copy paste the data, but it can be generated, let's say, every once in a while. And then put in there some systems in place so that you can do the data cleaning, any missing values, or the format that the VC really wants to have. And after you set those core foundations in place, I didn't want to fully automate it, because unfortunately, like, they wanted to keep it as simple as possible for them. Well, it can be fortunate too, because I mean, keeping it simple for people it's a good thing. So we ended up doing the automation and grabbing APIs within Excel and within Google's alternative, so that you just put the API and it does all the work within the platform. Um, but then, because the work is very rapid and very unknown in the research phase, you have weekly meetings that they require you to do different format or different visualizations or different requirements that the VC partners want. So you do small tweaks, but if you put those foundations in place for how you source the data, how you automate the updates, and how the different formats look, I think it's good enough to set you for success for the rest of the research.
Great, Daniel. Thank you so much. And I have one final question: is what did you most enjoy about conducting AI and blockchain research, and how do you stay up to date in the latest development in these fields? Like, because you are in the top of notch and different in this field, so how you stay up to date? So, like, what kind of where do you learn? What kind of articles, papers are you reading? What are your source of knowledge?
Yeah. So to start with, what's exciting? I
Yeah.
would say it's part of learning. I think your answer kind of gives me uh, like it answers itself. It's like
Mm.
both the ability for me to learn new things every day. It's part of the good things that I'm able to draw from doing such type of research. Um, I think meeting incredible people in the space are incredibly smart, at the bleeding edge of technology. Um, just being able to be in a very thriving research, but also startup community here in Silicon Valley, both at UC Berkeley, but also going uh, almost every other day or a few days a week in San Francisco to attend different meetups, to meet people in the space that do research, or they try to do different when they try to seek different business opportunities through AI startups. It's a great opportunity to be up to date. There is, I think, especially if you are in the Bay Area, Cerebral Valley.ai is a good website where they have events to attend and subscribe for different updates. I think Twitter, following the main researchers in the space, I would say Berkeley professors or Stanford professors, different AI labs like OpenAI or Google's DeepMind. Uh, yeah, top researchers in the space coming up with not only just when the research comes up, but they are able to also break it down. Um, I'm able to subscribe to different uh, email newsletters. Uh, I think it's different ones from product management to engineering to kind of startups. Um, I don't know if I have any on top of my mind right now. Um, yeah, I think it's Mind Product Gap or something like that. The Product Gap or Mind the Product Gap. It's one
Mm.
for product managers in the space. Listening to different podcasts from product school, keeping yourself up to date. I mean, we are here at Skills.tech. Uh, People, I'm pretty sure, come here for one way or another, but most likely to be trained and be up to date with recent technologies. That's what I'm also trying to do. Even though I'm doing research in the space, it doesn't necessarily mean that I am the expert. So I always try to be up to date, reading here and there research papers. Although I hate reading research papers, if I'm being honest. So if
It's part of
something
your
is
job.
pretty long,
Yeah.
yeah, if something is pretty long, I will tend to kind of convert it into an audio and listen to it when I'm walking or do something. I tend to kind of retain information better that way.
Yeah.
Um, or yeah, podcasts are a very, very good way, or just attend talks. I think everyone has their own best way on how to retain information. And once you understand how you learn, and how you retain information, then double down on that, on that kind of way of learning. That's what I would do to stay up to date in the space.
Absolutely. Daniel, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, for your for share your knowledge and your different perspectives in these fields, in these promising areas. So thank you so much again. I hope we can talk again in another episode, or maybe a masterclass. The masterclass is a different format; it's more like a teaching something. But thank you so much, Daniel. This is I'm glad to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and happy to be able to shed a little bit more light in the space for everyone who is listening today. And happy learning. I think being student first is always a good mindset in the space, but in general, yeah.
It's a long way. It's a long way. I think that people don't have to despair and in this way.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Bye bye.
Bye bye.